Alright. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Radiyallahu ta'ala anhu wa sadad tabi'ina wa ulama amilina wa a'ima arba'i mujtahideen wa muqallidihim ila yawmiddin amma ba'd. Alright, so we finished. We finished the section on pure things, impure things, and those things that are excused. So today we'll discuss about relieving oneself, your bathroom etiquettes, right? And bathroom etiquettes is a mandatory, it's an obligation upon us because of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When he was passing by a grave, there were two individuals in the grave. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Abdul Aziz. There was two men that were in the graves. He passed by. There were two men in the grave. He said they were being punished, and they were being punished in the grave. One of them was because of his activity with talking about people, and the other one was because he didn't purify himself after using the restroom. Right? So they were being tormented and punished in the grave. And so from that, it's understood that not only is there a certain etiquette on how to go to the bathroom, but however we know to neglect the proper way of relieving oneself, right? Properly relieving oneself, then therefore it'll cause you to be punished in the grave as well. And it also invalidates one's prayer. Okay? And this is why this is important. By teaching this, when you're constantly teaching these subjects, I promise you, you're keeping Islam relevant and above float. And you're keeping Allah Ta'ala's blessings with you, right? And with the Jama'ah, with the community. When a person doesn't know the basis of tahara, the basics of purification, self-purification, then what happens is that you begin to destroy the foundation. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in the hadith, "Buni al-Islam ala khamsa." Islam is built on 5. Bunya, right? The foundation is fixated. It's founded upon 5 pillars. It's founded on 5 pillars. Islam is the foundation of Islam is built and is fixated upon these 5. So that means everything within its obligations, right, is sunan, right? The conditions, meaning the shurut, all of those things is what keep Islam above float. It's the thing that has to be practiced, okay? So when you start to abandon basic things, and you will be surprised on how common it is that Muslims neglect bathroom etiquette. Alaikum salam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Imam Malik. Right? How it's common, very common. Make sure you lock that when you come in. It's very common that Muslims neglect proper bathroom etiquette. Right? Go ahead. It's proper etiquette. Right? That you have to have etiquette when you utilize bath. You'd be surprised how many Muslims don't make istinja, don't make istijmar, right? You'll be surprised on how many Muslims neglect this. And I can't say this enough to emphasize it, right? It's very common. No. It's very common, all right, that people neglect utilization or cleaning themselves properly. And this has to be done in order for prayer to be valid. One of the things that invalidates, that's considered impure, is what? One of the things that you have in your with you. That is with you. Urine. One of the most common things. If you don't make a stinger, then what happens? It's common. People urinate, especially a male. He urinates and he got that dribble, right? If you don't clean yourself properly, that dribble of urine will run right down your leg and soil your pants, right? It'll soil your pants. Hold on a second. The code. I texted to get it from Bubak on them. Y'all interrupted me. Get it from your brother. Your brother got the code. Stop asking me questions. Y'all interrupting the class. It's like, yeah, I got ADHD. Sit down. So, it's very common. It's very common. People have urine, and they don't clean themselves. Then how is it that you'll approach the prayer? How is it that you'll approach Salat? Right? Some of the wisdom with younger children not leading the prayer, and a lot of people love to have children that's not mukallaf to lead the prayer based on hadith, right? If the person, one of the things about the imam, they have to be balagh. That's the first, or mukallaf. That has to be the first thing, a prerequisite of an imam, right? Despite of them saying that he was the youngest amongst them, it doesn't really specify saying like, yo, this little boy right here. But the salat is led balagh. Anybody who led the salat in Masjid Nabawiyah amongst the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the masjid in Medina, they were all adults, right? It wasn't that often that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't lead the prayer. They were all adults, right? So my case in point, a little boy, I don't care if he knows the most Quran or not, right? That little boy, he's not balagh, right? Especially if he doesn't know the rules of prayer. That's also the other thing, and the years that we spend in the masajid where people were like basically auditioning and battling on who's going to lead the prayer, right? Dudes would go home and recite Quran, and wallahi azim, I never forget this. We were in a masjid. I'm not going to name the name of the masjid. It was a brother. They always pushed his brother up because he recite beautifully, right? Because most of our Islam is all outward for most of us. His recitation was on a bean. It was tight. It was jaded, right? He made a mistake in a prayer, and he didn't know how to correct that. The second time he did the prayer, he must have broke wudu or something, and he left the prayer, and the people didn't know what to do after that. Right? Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Idris. They didn't know what to do. Right? So people get pushed, edged up. Come on, lead the prayer. Go ahead, Sheikh. You the most knowledgeable. You got the whitest stove on, or you know how to recite, but they don't know what breaks the prayer. Right? They don't know what makes wudu invalid. Right? And all of those things. What is sajdatul sahw and things of that nature. And, you just found the people just literally standing there. So I slammed out, stepped to the side, prayed the prayer, and I left and went on about my business. Right? But then you start to realize, and I said this in the beginning of this class, is that when you start to begin to learn fiqh, what happens when you're learning fiqh? You start looking at people kind of side-eye. Even if you don't want to, it's just going to happen by nature. Right? Then you have to bring it back and humble yourself and learn how to be humble. And if you want good for your brother, then you'll learn how to find ways to teach them to be on the proper path. So anyway, to proceed on. So we're talking about relieving oneself, right? I think there was some words last week that I was supposed to, last class. If anybody remember those words, type them in the chat. I didn't get a chance to translate those words for you guys like I said I was, inshallah, and I want to do that still. But what happened was last week I had finals for my class, and I kind of like dedicated more of my time to that versus preparing for classes. So I apologize for that. But inshallah, if anybody remembers, type them in there. And if you remember, if you're listening to the this lecture after the video is done, at me. Make sure you at me in there so that if you're using Facebook, at me in there so that I can remember. Just put in there, these are the words that you said you was gonna translate for us, inshallah. So anyway, the section on relieving oneself. He said, the Qala Mu'alif rahimahullah, the author of the text, he said, it is forbidden, mani'a, from mim nun ayn. Mani'a is prohibited, or another word of like saying haram, prohibited. To relieve oneself while sitting flat up on the earth, right? Now, what does that mean? It doesn't mean while you're sitting, don't use the bathroom. It means if a person has to use the bathroom for him to sit flat on the floor, right? Mostly bathrooms in our time now is usually you're sitting on what? A toilet, right? Well, back in the day, and if you've been to some of the cultural masters, I'll say like that, they usually, even in America, back in the day, we used to have what they call an outhouse, right? Outhouses aren't that common now unless you live somewhere way in the sticks somewhere. Which outhouses are actually really Islam Sharia compliant, to be honest with you. But anyway, an outhouse, you used to have the outhouse. Basically, it was a hole in the ground where you relieve yourself at, whether urine or defecation, whatever the case is, it went in that hole. When I say culturally, in some masajid, you'll see that they have like a porcelain, I guess you say a porcelain hole, for lack of better words. It's basically a hole. It doesn't have a toilet seat, but it has like a porcelain cover. And, in the hole is where the urine and the defecation goes. And you can flush it as well, and water will come and wash it down, right? This is what I meant when I said culturally. For most of us in the West, in America, our toilet is connected to our house, right? And this is something that was strange. So a lot of times when you're dealing with books of fiqh, it's talking about like a bare minimum situation, meaning that the minimum that you may be dealing with a outhouse, a porta potty, type of setting, or an area that's designated for restroom. It used to be common in Medina early on that people will walk outside of the actual, what was called the city limits, to use the bathroom as well. Okay? Now, with us now speaking, into current times, we aren't sitting on flat earth. So if you ever had to go to the bathroom and, you sit on the concrete and utilize the bathroom, it is forbidden to do so. Why is that? That is haram to sit up on the flat earth? Because of the fact that the defecation, the impurities will get back on you. Okay? So that's one way. You want to keep yourself clear. And the whole thing is, the whole purpose of this, of learning this, and the whole purpose of this is to make sure that we are keeping ourselves purified. This is why you learn what's considered pure things. This is why you learn water first. Then you learn what's considered pure, what's considered impure, and those things that are excused. Now we're getting into the nitty gritty. Now you have to go to the bathroom. So it's prohibited for you to sit up on flat, the earth. You use the bathroom. The second, it is forbidden to relieve oneself up on soft earth, and it's damp already from impurities, right? So that'll be your soggy ground. Let's say you had an area that's designated to use the bathroom and it's soggy, right? You can't go over there and urinate, whether you're standing or otherwise, urinate, because the impurities are splashed back on you. Get on your clothing, your shoes, your body, whatever the case is, right? The next thing he said is forbidden to relieve oneself while facing the Kibbler, okay? Or while having your back to it. So this is the principle, the qa'id. The principle is you cannot utilize the bathroom facing the Kibbler or having your back to the Kibbler. Why is that? If you prayed in an area, let's say you use the restroom in an open field, right? And someone is looking to determine the direction of the Kibbler, right? And they go and they make salat. Guess what they're praying on? If they pray where you just urinated at or just took a poo at, right? They're gonna pray on that. So your body is away from facing the Kibbler or having your back to it, right? That's in order to do this. So you would turn your body away from the direction of prayer, with the exception of being inside of a building, right? So with us, In our case, alhamdulillah, our toilets are inside of our homes. But not only are they inside of your homes, but there's walls and barriers. So therefore, this is not an issue if your toilet is facing the Kibbler. All right? Alhamdulillah, for my bathroom, where I'm looking at my house, my toilet's facing away from the Kibbler. All right? But, you know, that's just for you to do your own thing at your own time. You know, your own research. But if you're using a restroom, then there's no worries. All right? It is obligatory. It is wajib. Obligatory. Right? To do istibra of urine. Okay? Istibra of urine for men is by squeezing the penis slightly and then shaking, right? To get the dribble of urine off. Don't start giggling over there, because you look like you ready to start cracking up laughing. All right? You squeeze the penis and get the dribble off. You shake it slightly. And it says that one should do istijmar. Istijmar is what they call a dry wiping, right? At minimum, in the tradition, the old ways, you would use 3 smooth, flat stones to wipe your booty, right? Today's time, alhamdulillah, if you out in nature, you out in the wilderness, right? 3 smooth stones is acceptable for istijmar. So istijmar is wiping. Istinja, we're going to talk about what that is in a second. So you will use 3 smooth stones. But alhamdulillah, we have toilet paper. We have toilet paper. Now, and so he says about using the 3 dry stones or the likes of that 3 dry stones. The last one must be completely free of filth. So when you're wiping yourself, when you're using a bathroom, when you're doing a number 2, or not even a number 2, because in women you gotta wipe as well. They gotta wipe and they gotta use water. When you're doing, you're using the bathroom, you have to wipe yourself. When you relieve yourself, you have to wipe yourself in order to clean yourself. That last wipe, it should be free from traces of poo, the poo and everything else, the dookie stain. That's where a lot of, like, growing up, even some adult, that's where the dookie stains come from. Dookie stains come from the leftover poo in your booty, or just the last of the reminiscences of it, right? It's dry. That's what dookie stains are. It's dry crap, basically, and it got stuck. Your drawers got stuck in it, right? So you're going to relieve yourself and you're going to wipe yourself until you see no more. I know y'all got the giggles over there, but really, you wipe yourself until you see no more. And the idea is to do it with three wipings, right? That's the idea, is to do it with 3 wipings, okay? But the whole thing is to clean yourself. Now, with istinja, oh, he didn't mention istinja just yet. Not yet. Hold on 1 second.
Quick question, man.
Okay.
But when you said the idea is the 3 wipings,
right?
Like, for instance, if 3 times got rid of the toilet paper, you still need it more. Every time is 3 times and not just once. You know what I mean? Because sometimes you might not get it all at that point. You know what I'm saying?
I believe the whole concept is based off of doing things on an odd number, but 3 times is really, you're trying to be it's trying to be ideal. 1, 2, 3. Don't exceed. Try not to exceed 3. Sometimes you may have one of them. You may have a bad day. You might have ate the wrong food or something. You understand what I'm saying? And you constantly wiping and using water and wiping, and you're measuring how you're gauging your cleanliness is based off of that last wipe. So sometimes it may exceed 3. That's why I said, but ideally 3 is usually where you want to end off at. 3 is where you want to stop at. All right, if you understand what I'm saying. You understand what I'm saying? So 3 is the number that you really want to stop at. But if you have to do more than 3, you want to make sure that last one is free. Because what happens if a person wipes on that 3rd wipe and it's still, leftover stain on it, right? So, you have to wipe until, that toilet paper is almost clean, right? And we're saying toilet paper. Now, istinja is where one cleans themselves with water. All right? So you have istinja and istijmar. All right? Istijja is where you use water, where you pour water on the privates. Right? Usually for males, it's when we do istibra, when you do the, when you do the squeeze. You're not yanking to hurt yourself or anything like that. Right? And it's funny because when you read the Ihya, the Shaykh goes into detail about it. So you're not yanking in order to hurt yourself. You're not massaging yourself where you're sitting there. It's like you masturbating, right? But you're enough where you get into the leftover dribble. You pour water for istinja on there. You shake and then you pour water on there, and khalas, you go on about your business. If you're using the bathroom, right? It depends on what you're using. Most of us got some kind of squeeze bottle that we use to do istinja. You squeeze the water in there, swoosh, it's knocking all the dookie and anything else left over out of there, right? But it's just a big squish splash, right? Or you got some people that use the flower pot where you got to pour where the water is getting down into the crack to wash the dookie out of there. Whatever, stop laughing, man. Whatever method is that you're using in order to clean yourself, that method has to be, and then you do istijmar where you wipe. Right? The perfect way to wipe for men, from the way they say the rooter to the tutor, basically from the top to the to the back. So you want to wipe up as well to make sure, after utilizing the water. Same thing for women. Women would do the same thing. They pour the water after the urine. A lot of times, a lot of female odor comes from the lack of istinja. pH balance, things like that play part of it. But honestly, a lot of it becomes that stench, and that odor also comes from not making fitra as well. Men and women. Right? You ever pull off your boxes and you be like, whoo! If you got, you got the you got an afro going on down there because sunnah, the shave, right? That keeps odor. It's like same thing when you shave your armpits, you shave that hair from under your arms. Now I know culturally, Western culture, but like we talked about yesterday in yesterday's class, Islam supersedes culture. Western culture, armpit hair is supposed to be considered like a masculine thing, right? But you remove that armpit hair, you really wouldn't. You do, but you wouldn't have to use deodorant in the same manner that it was if you walk around with an afro under your armpits. Right? Because that joint keeps all of the sweat and everything else, keeps it all up in there, versus when you're shaving, basically you're feeling just the sweat. Right? I'm not saying you don't wear deodorant. Whether you wear deodorant or not is your business. Right? But what I'm saying is we're talking about fitra. Right? And fitra in itself is the shaving of the pubic hairs, the shaving of the underarm hairs, and clipping the nails. Right? Each of them have to be done, right? So that's why I don't even understand why Muslims even want to imitate the kuffar with wearing those fake nails and stuff. That's one of the things. It'd be a turnoff, especially Muslim men. If y'all like them nails, man, more power to you. But those, then they do all that click, 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 clickety, click, click, click stuff. One of the things is they can't wipe their butt. It's true. Not even trying to be funny. They can't. How? Ask them. How you wipe your booty? Right, trying to grab the tissue. They probably dab, just dab their butt. That thing probably funky. But anyway. Anyway, so istinja, and the hukum is different for men and women. At least with the Malikis. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sister Malika Muhammad and Brother Abdullah. The hukum is different for men and women within our madhab. For istijmar, it's wajib for everybody. For istinja, it's mustahab for men. For women, istinja is wajib. She has no choice. Now, when we're saying that it's mustahab for men, that doesn't mean you walk around without making istinja. This is the problem. That's how you learn that old ignorant fiqh. That's what we'll call that jahiliyyah fiqh. Where sunnah means to abandon and wajib means you must do it. All right? Anybody who practices Islam like that, like I said, you can tell you have a certain decorum, a certain character about you. You can tell that a person, when they think like this, we know where your problem comes from, right? that kind of person, they're a little skeptical. They're not really a trustworthy person, right? So, but anyway, now, so he says it's permissible to clean oneself of feces with anything clean and a dry thing which is not harmful, value, damp, impure, smooth, sharp, foodstuff, some things with writing on it, gold, silver, the wall, the dry dung of an animal, riding beast, or and when the object being used can thoroughly remove all body waste, then it is permissible like your hand or less than 3 stones. Now, this is why I say, me personally, I don't know if I'm going to be out in the wilderness looking for 3 stones. I'm sorry, I got like a little certain phobia when it comes to bugs. I be thinking mosquitoes, malaria in your butt, you know, to get bit by a mosquito and stuff like that. That's just how my mind works, right? But the left hand, this is why you do not eat with your left hand, right? My household, growing my household, I always call the left hand the dookie hand, right? Because that is the hand you're taught. If you don't know how to use your left hand, you better learn how to use your left hand, right? Because I didn't know how to use my left hand either when I became Muslim, but I dedicated my life to that. The left hand is made for cleaning yourself. The right hand is for eating and, you know, and things of that nature. Not saying you can't use your left hand, but the left hand is dedicated to cleaning oneself, right? So with the left hand, and you're encouraged to do all good deeds on your right side with your right hand. Yeah, that's facts. Now, go ahead.
One more question back to Estinja. So say a situation you
watch it
maybe a restaurant or something, right? And you don't have a bottle and you would suffice to put a bunch of water on your hand and wipe yourself that way. That suffice for Estinja.
I'll tell you our method. I'll tell you our method that we use, a few of the brothers, and we always, most of the time we find our own little water bottle, even if you know, usually you're conscious of that. It's all a level of your water, right? Your level of scrupulousness. But most of the time you should keep in mind to keep a bottle of water, an empty bottle around. You know, one of the things you always find is Muslims got a lot of water bottles, right? Sisters, I know a lot of sisters that always keep their own little personal extended bottle. But that's what I'm glad you asked this question, because another thing. I make sure I want to mention this because a lot of people do this. But anyway, the best thing to do, you can do one of two things. You can take and wet a paper towel, right? Wet the paper towel, like drench it. And use that paper towel to use the water out of there to use it as an extender, for a method of extender. Now it's all a matter of your assessment of how much water you're going to need to squeeze the water, to squeeze, and how much paper towel you should use. You don't use it in order to wipe yourself. You use the dry tissue to wipe yourself, but you use the wet, you understand, wet tissue, if that's making sense to you, right? Or if you have a cup, right, then you can utilize, like you say, using your hand. You can pour the water in your hand. You can cup the water and that water stay in your hand in order to use it for a stinja, then by all means. The only thing that you're worried about with istinja doesn't change. You have to use water to make a stinja. The only thing that you're really worried about is, how am I going to get this water from the sink to the toilet in a public setting? So that's just all a matter of you putting your mind to it, how you're going to do it. But the thing is, you have to understand and you must know that you got to use water, right? Now, the other thing I wanted to mention that, alhamdulillah, that you asked this question that brought to my mind, you cannot use baby wipes, right? And it's unfortunate. The hukm al-shari, and I always make this statement, it's no real big deal, but as a person trying to do things from knowledge, I always say a lot of babies don't have the opportunity of being pure until their mother puts them in the tub or their father puts them in the tub, right? Because our children, they utilize diapers, right? Fine, no problem. Utilize diapers. But what do the children clean? What do the parents clean the children with? Wipes. Right? They clean them with wipes. Right? This isn't really, well, you would be better off getting a washcloth and a stinger bottle, spray little man's butt, and wipe it with the washcloth. Right? Clean. But if you use wipes, he just won't be considered clean until he gets in his tub, right? It's no big deal because it's not like the baby's making salat. I ain't gonna say it's no big deal out of wara, scrupulousness. The baby's not making salat, so it wouldn't invalidate his prayer or anything like that. But sometimes that's a contribution to the contribution to diaper rashes, where the child is left, soaked in the soil for a lengthy amount of time, right? So, just a level, like I said, developing a level of consciousness. So you don't use wet wipes, wet ones, and all those different things. You have to use water and tissue. And if you don't have those 3 rocks, like I said, fiqh is dealing with the bare minimum. You ain't got those 3 rocks. Me, myself, like I said, I don't know if I would use 3 rocks. I would just use my left hand. All right? I ain't shaking your hand with my left hand anyway. So if you see me extend my hand and shake your hand, the left hand, you should slap my hand like, yo, all right, give me your right hand and stop playing with me, right? But, however, in all seriousness, the minimum, if you don't have tissue, you're out in the wilderness somewhere, use rocks or something that's equivalent to it. But if you're going to use something other than the 3 rocks or your left hand or tissue, then you have to make sure that it's not harmful, that you have to make sure it's not damp, you have to make ssure that it's not impure, that you have to make sure it's not sharp, it's not food or something with writing on it, gold or silver, the wall, the dung, bones of animals. When you don't have any of that, then you can use whatever that thing is that you plan on using, as long as it don't cause no harm to you. So you're not going to use a sword. Everybody uses a sword to make istijmar. You're a brave soul. You deserve that, right? But however, you're not going to use any of these things or anything of true value, okay? So with that, this would conclude our class for today. Next week, we're going to start getting more and more into the meat and potatoes of things. You got the sunnah of wudu. We're going to be starting discussing wudu. And we're going to discuss hadith and things of that nature. We're going to have to take some more notes. Some of the stuff that's going to be in the book. Some of the stuff is not going to be in the text. But however, we're going to get down on the get down, inshallah. Any questions or anything at this point, you send them to me. I can address them. If you can type fast enough, I'll answer them right now, inshallah. But one of the things I want you're going to hear these terms a lot, wajib and sunnah. I don't want you to think that wajib means something that you have to do and sunnah means that you don't have to do it. Right now, take these in your notes. Make this part of your notes. Remember that I think we mentioned this in the very first class. Terminology is everything when you study in sciences, right? Terminology in fiqh, wajib, in our case, is maliki. Wajib in our case means mandatory. It shares the same meaning as fard. Okay? It shares the same exact meaning. There's no difference between the two. Sunan, in this case, is those actions that their proof isn't as strong as the wajib. Okay? That's all it's indicating. To abandon it, it does cause some deficiency to the action. Okay? It causes some level of deficiency to the action. Does the Shaykh who use any particular Maliki text when he discusses fiqh in his book, or he's going by memory? Everything that the Shaykh who teaches is all centered around the Mukhtasar Khalil. And if he was quoting a quote where if you want to see the Malikiism of the Shaykh, exclusively Maliki, you would study Untitled Chapter. And the reason why I say that is because he quotes the proofs in there. And then he quotes the principle of the ulama within the madhab. If you want to see the scholasticism. I mean, everything is the scholasticism that he put together. But you want to see the true scholasticism in the Shehu, you'll study the Ihya al-Sunnah wa Ikmal al-Bid'ah. Because in there he mentions all of the issues of khilaf and and when you and honestly when you study, even when you study books, and I encourage the students and my students, and and we also do this as well, if there's other texts of Maliki fiqh you can learn and it's available, accessible, by all means learn it, because it will help you understand more and you'll see the scholarship. One of the things that they mentioned about the Shehu was that he memorized, I'm trying to remember which commentary it was, real famous commentary, Mukhtasar Khalil. He memorized the 4 volumes of that commentary, the Mukhtasar Khalil, in, I think it was 4 days, or 1 to 4 days. I think it was 1 day, to be honest with you, but I think 4 days the most, right? Memorized it. And when he studied with his teacher that he studied the Mukhtasar Khalil with, he didn't even crack open the book. The Shehu recited to him and he corrected him. He recited him, he listened from memory, and wherever he made a mistake, he corrected the Shehu. It was all from memory, right? So it shows you the dedication, that you put into your studies. This, alhamdulillah, you formally go through classes, get explanation, but when you're away from the teacher, you commit to memorization, right? And that's how you keep it. Even if you go long periods without being in contact with your teacher, you should be memorizing. At this point in your studies, in the beginning of your affair, if you're a new student or otherwise, right? In your affair, alaikum salam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sidi Mustafa. In the beginning of your affair as a student, even if you don't consider yourself a student, as an entry-level Muslim, you want to call yourself entry-level, whatever, I don't care about the titles. The things you should be memorizing: the Quran, a minimum of at least 40 hadith, right? The 2 or 3 at least small or matun textbooks of fiqh. You should memorize maybe a poem. Another is good if you can get one. If you can't get a poem, then you just need to memorize it word for word, verbatim. And do both, English and Arabic, right? The goal is to walk away from the Arabic. Does a person that ride a bike ride training wheels forever? Or they only use them until they learn how to ride the bike with the balance, right? So you want to move away from English gradually. Move yourself away from that. Memorize and learn tajweed. Memorize and learn sarf. Right? Sarf is dealing with word conjugation. Then when you learn and memorize sarf, at least on a basic level, then learn and memorize the Ajrumiyya, right? Or any book that's equivalent to an Ajrumiyya, where you're learning Nahu, where you're learning grammar. And of course, I forgot to mention this second, I was actually third, you should be memorizing a book of Usul al-Fiqh. I mean, not Usul al-Fiqh, I'm sorry, Usul al-Din, where you know the 13 attributes or the 20 attributes, right? That is why that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mawjood, mukhalif lil hawadith, baqin, learning these things, because it helps you with dawah as well as basic principle, bare minimum, right? The basis of learning about character reformation and tasawwuf, you usually, for us, alhamdulillah, most of our texts that we study as Maliki is Iman, Islam, and Ihsan, especially on the primers books, right? Ibn Ashur, this book here, Umdat'l Bayan, it has Iman. Iman is the Usuluddin, where you learn your Aqidah. Islam is fiqh. And Ihsan is the beginning of the affairs of Tasawwuf, where you learn the purification of your heart from arrogance, pride, conceit, greed, and all of those things that permeate the heart, those sins that permeate the heart, right? We have a lot to cover, and you should be learning this to memorize this, right? When you learn the books of Usul, then you go into books like Tahawi, or like I said, if we just keep it strictly Maliki, you don't have to go outside the Maliki madhab, right? You have the Risala Ibn Abi Zayd. If you have books like Ashal Masalik, it has the Aqidah in there. If you study the Izziyah has Aqidah in there, right? But Ashal Masalik, it deals with some of the issues dealing with refutation in Ilm Kalam, refuting, the deviant sects. Jawhar al-Tawheed by Imam Lakhani, right? These books, this gives you, not only you get usul, but you also get Ilm Kalam as well, where you're dealing with refutation and how to deal with the Shia, the Mu'tazila line of thinking, the Salafiyya line of thinking, and all those different sects that come and promote creed that's outside of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Tahawi's popular, but there's all kinds of books. Every region they had a scholar that there was someone that can write a book on creed. Okay, so like I said, Tahawi's popular, but there are other scholars who wrote books on creed, and they use different methodologies. But the one thing that they all had in common was their creed fell in line with the principles of the madhab of Imam Abu Hassan al-Ash'ari, or fell in the methodology of Imam Abu Mansur al-Maturidi. Khalas, right? So despite where the region was, okay? So those things are important, especially to your studies. Hold on 1 second here. Now, Handbook on Islam is more of like a summarization of Al-Izziyah, right? And it was an interesting dialogue. I'm in a Maliki Fiqh group on Facebook. A lot of times I really don't like those groups. So I just read and then just keep it pushing, because a lot of it just sounds like a real lot of hypothetical questions. Well, Sheikh, in a Maliki school, what if this and what if that? But alhamdulillah. But one conversation we had that they brought in there, it was talking about locale. Every country, every region, the locale, they were trying to have a discussion about the sub-schools within the school, right? In the Maliki school, you have the Madhab of Medina, and then you have Iraq, right? That's how it was split by the locale, because scholars went to different regions and established. Just like you all are my students in your respective city, be honest with you, if you were to learn everything that I teach you and then you teach it back in the same manner, you're actually establishing, the school of Amal Ahlul Medina in that region, right? But however, the madrasa always started with the person and not the building. But anyway, so you have the Egyptian school. Some of the students of Malik, because they would come to Imam Malik, they would learn and they would go back to their respective lands and they would establish, the schools. And someone said, well, why do they leave out West Africa? And and they had I got to go back because I'm pretty sure that the comments got a little lengthy, and the conversation was a nice conversation. But however, when me and one of my companions, we were talking, he's also a student within the Maliki school. One of the things that we knew about West Africa was we didn't do a whole lot of flip-flopping and changing. A lot of flip-flopping and changing didn't come until afterwards. Even when you go to West Africa now, you see a lot of West Africans praying Qub with their right hand over their left. You didn't find all that flip-flopping until, the outside influence, Saudi money started getting involved in all those different things. You didn't have a whole lot of flip-flopping from them. However, whatever we was on, we just stuck to it, followed it. We didn't argue with you. We would deal with you accordingly, and we minded our own business. But however, if you look in the curriculum of the Malikis that West Africans study, they're all established based off a lot of the fuqaha that were from Misr, from Egypt. All right, from Egypt, One of the common books that studied is the Risala. That book is held in high standards. Then you got the Mukhtasar Khalil, and so on and so forth. So, that's just a little history rhetoric, inshallah. Hold on a second. It said that the ruins in the Risala are weak in one group I was in. No, absolutely not. The Risala is a Mukhtasar, Mukhtasar of the Mudawwana Imam Malik. some of the wording, how the Risala is set up. It's not set up in the same way that is the Mukhtasar Khalil, the Mudawwana. It was just basically a summarization, right? That the student, because you got to remember, the Risala is written for children. It's not written for adults. It was written for children. And, and so it gives, like kind of like the statement where you're familiar with, you're familiar with the ruling, right? And another secret about the Risala is some of them they're basically summarized ayats and hadith, right? Summarized ayats and hadith. If you look at it, you'll pick up on that as you get further in your studies. But no, the Mukhtasar isn't weak. I mean, Risala isn't weak. No, I wouldn't say that. Absolutely not. It ain't tripping. I think praying Qab had a lot to do with the influence of the Tijanis and Ibrahim Niyaz. In some cases, and Allah knows best. I don't know their reasoning. Man, we gotta assume the best, and that's not anything. I got anything, against people who pray Qab. It's valid within the madhab, but however, it's we found what the people of Medina doing was stronger. You just put that. What they were doing was stronger. It was, we see a better fit. And this was also known as the last thing. And we're gonna have a class discussing Qabd and Sadr, right? We're gonna actually have a class discussing that, inshallah. But who prayed Qabd? See, a lot of times, also another thing too is sometimes because of people we trust, the personality is connected with the action sometimes. So that also. But I mean, people always pray Qabd. They pray Qabd, regardless of the fact. But West African is becoming a little more popular now because of the influences or whatever the influence is, whether it's the sheikh or outside they sheikh, Saudi oil money, or maybe even just books that they're reading. But the bottom line is that these things happen now. Now, inshallah. All right, inshallah, we'll get together next week, same time, same bat channel. Inshallah, later on tonight, we'll have a class, 6:30, 7 o'clock, the latest. Continuing the book that we started with Sheikh Uthman Danfodio about the followers of the Sunnah Ahl Sunnah versus Ghayru Ahl Sunnah. All right, that's the best name I can put to that class, inshallah. Barakallahu feekum. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward everyone for their time, and I apologize, inshallah. I'm going to try to stick with 12:30 being the regular time. It's football season. This, kind of like what happens. So, sometimes, I try to be the supportive dad, and show up to some of my son's football game and stuff like that. So today, the time I was told that it started was I actually had enough time to do today's class at 12:30 because they didn't start on time anyway. But whatever. But anyway, inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward everyone, inshallah. So our Giants is still bums on y'all out of pocket. You gotta be an Eagles fan. Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.